want to conclude with a couple of observations. First of all, if the first picture that I put up before imagined that we were all essentially in one circle held together by forces against our will, what would it look like for us to start imagining ourselves not as a circle, but as a complex Venn diagram? That each of these circles of community and commitment actually have their own integrity. There's a cultural or ethnic or religious Judaism that doesn't necessarily involve the individuals who identify with it requiring or assuming that they fit into all of the other circles. This would have to be an animated, constantly moving Venn diagram, because for some people it might be, well, I see myself as nationally and communally connected to the people, but I don't really like Jewish food. Or perhaps I may be a Jew by birth, but I don't see myself as connected to Jewish community in any sort of meaningful way. And that for some of us, we may see ourselves as the hot core, right? Those who are actually feel that they're connected to, you can interpret that however you like, connected to all five of these circles, that it doesn't tell an accurate story necessarily about all of the people who see themselves as committed or one way or another to all aspects of Jewish life. I want to leave us with three ideas which I want to talk about as the educational agenda for new Jewish pluralism. Three big ideas. If we could work on this, people, we could do something. The first is convergence. What would it look like for us to see part of our educational work as trying to converge towards the center of the Venn diagram without taking for granted that Jewishness involves starting at the center of the Venn diagram? So maybe part of our challenge as educators to say to people, look, you have a serious identity that's on this part of the Venn diagram, but what can I do to help you coax towards the middle? Because more is better. Right? 5 points of entry, 5 core commitments betrays that this is a complex, multivalent tradition, and there's what for you to gain out of understanding that this tradition is not merely about culture, beliefs, practices, ethnicity, but also about the national story of the Jewish people. So the first goal is convergence. The second is thickness. How do we also take seriously that each of these spheres matters and is serious and reflects somebody's story and reflects community stories? And that without just doing the work of convergence, which means trying to force these stories together, how do we take seriously what it would mean to thicken each of these core commitments of Judaism on their own? That somebody says, I'm a cultural Jew, I want to say to them, let's work harder to make you the best cultural Jew you can be. If you're a religious Jew, I want that to be a thick and robust identity that doesn't require my saying to them, oh yeah, you may be a religious Jew, but are you also a communal Jew? What would it look like for us to do the work of convergence simultaneously to the work of thickness? And the third is that we need some new language, some new terminology. The challenge I want to put in front of us is, are we comfortable, for instance, with the idea that long-term there may be a difference between the terms Jew, member of the Jewish community, and member of the Jewish people? That there might be somebody who fits into one, but not 2 and 3, and so forth. Historically, we haven't been particularly comfortable with that, and therefore we've elided between these terms as though we know exactly what we're talking about when we mean each of them. But if we're actually living in a world of a Venn diagram, there may be individuals and people who we can say comfortably, that person is part of the Jewish people, but I don't necessarily identify them as a Jew by legal standards. And as difficult as that is, as hard as it is to sustain this kind of multiple terminology for a community that's out there, it may be our only technique to hold ourselves together. In other words, these are not efforts to actually promote a culture of difference in the Jewish community, as much to acknowledge the existing difference that's already there, and to revise our approach, our terminology, our language, and our philosophy of education to acknowledge those differences and to work around them. Ultimately, the educational agenda of new Jewish pluralism is going to have to be rooted in a comprehensive and radical empathy for all of the transformative change that's taking place all around us. A deep acknowledgement that this is who the Jewish people are becoming, mostly because of forces that are good, but almost entirely because of forces that are out of our control. And together with that pluralism of a radical empathy for others, the willingness to include people in our broad, evolving revolving circles and Venn diagrams, together with that, we have to challenge ourselves to think totally differently about the new Jewish realities that are coming, not with fear, but with deep self-confidence. Thank you.